Hello there and welcome back to the Maratha Confederacy Abridged, where in the previous part we retook Ireland from the French and knocked France out of the game in the process. Then Savoy tried to attack Paris and ultimately failed. After that we finally got our affairs in order, consolidated our forces and started our next project, that being an invasion of the United Provinces to our east, and we're starting off with this battle where I'm drawing out some enemies from a settlement. This one begins in the usual fashion. We've got some cav charging right at our line. These guys are pretty lucky. They charge across the face of our army and most of our units fire at them, but we don't get very many kills. At least the morale debuff brings them down to wavering. There was a chance they would just rout. There was also a chance they would ram into our troops. Neither of those things happened. We ended up fighting with some lancers who came in from the flank, which is fine, I guess. I thought the enemy would actually get their charge to work, but they kind of zigzagged at the last second and threw it all away. So that's good. You can see their army is making its way over, but more cav come out from the reinforcements. These guys go for our left flank where there are a bunch of trees, but hidden in the trees are our own left flank cavalry, so we charge out with some lancers to meet them. Now I'm pretty sure that fighting in the forest reduces your charge bonus, so I'm guessing our lancers will do worse than they would normally here. However, while the enemy have 2 units and we have 3, one of their 2 units is basically already dead, so we have them surrounded. It's kind of hard to tell here because of the trees. But we are able to rout the bigger of the 2 units. That's going to in turn chain rout the other one, and basically that fight was fine. At the same time, more cav are coming at our other flank. Again, they're obliging us by running across the face of our army first, so we get some shots off on them. Not many kills, but again it brings them down to wavering with the small arms fire. Then when I charge at them with my right flank lancers, they immediately rout, and that's the end of that. It seems the small arms fire morale debuff, as mentioned in a previous part, is just bigger than I remembered. It seems to make a really big difference. You can go down from eager to wavering right away. Anyway, there's another cav charge on our left flank, and this one's actually making it past our own cav since they were distracted, finishing off some survivors. However, they got small arms fire debuffed, and then I just touched them on the back with some pursuing cav, and that routed them, and they continued on off the field. So far then, a very successful early engagement. The infantry eventually strolled on over, and we're not wasting any time, just going to slam right into these guys before they finish forming up to avoid getting shot, and the nearby enemies just ran off from small arms fire. So again, it's doing the business. I think they're also getting debuffed from being outflanked by that cav charge as well, so that might be helping. Anyway, looks like we're finishing off their infantry, but they do have like another wave coming in behind them because of the whole reinforcement thing. So after we slaughter a few units, we have to take on some more, but actually things were a bit easier than expected because the ones approaching behind them started just running away. Now they're routing just under artillery fire. Somehow the enemy's morale is just getting lower and lower. I had 2 kind of theories as to why this was happening, because I feel like morale wasn't this low the last time I played the game, which wasn't that long ago. And it was either that artillery fire morale debuffs can stack, because I am firing at them with 4 different batteries, so maybe they're getting 4 under artillery fire debuffs. Or, because this mod increases the unit size, artillery are just more likely to hit things, so they tend to pick up more kills, and we can get the concerned recent casualties debuff on the enemy more often, so that's why they were routing without even fighting while under artillery fire. With the enemy apparently on the edge, I just went out with the cav to try and finish them off, but actually they've got surprises for me. They start pulling out the square formations once the lancers get them into melee. I seem to remember someone telling me in the past there's something about the square formation that makes them really good when firing their weapons. Maybe they reload faster, or they're more accurate or something, or maybe it just allows more guns to fire at the same time compared to a regular firing line. But yeah, the square does some damage. We're unable to rout them off the field this time, and we actually lose a load of guys right there. However, that doesn't really stop my plan. Some of the other units didn't square up, and in those cases we were able to get rid of them, but we are going to be taking some moderate losses among the lancers by just not moving up the infantry and artillery to support. Obviously that is an option here, but I was just trying to finish the battle as quickly as possible. Real world time saving is often one of my strategic requirements. And we can see that right here. I could bring up artillery to pound these squares into the dust, but I ended up just thinking, well, I'll just charge them again, maybe it will get rid of them. because you can sort of force them out of square. If you push them around a lot, they tend to go back into regular formation and lose whatever buffs the square formation gives them. And in this case, we also slam them with the elephants. That does the job. Basically, we slaughter them the hard way, and we still end up with pretty good results. I was checking here to see if the guns had got a load of kills. Since they were pushing the enemy back so effectively, not really is the answer. You can get like 40 kills on a gun unit. That's not very impressive. But it seems their effect on morale is great, as is the effect of small arms fire. Just need to keep that in mind, because of course they can do it to us as well. So far we've got away with things because the enemy tend not to actually fire at us. Once all that's over, the settlement surrenders, and that's that. We have taken the Flanders province, and from here we can move on to Amsterdam itself, although I'm not going to, because they do have the territories to the east and south as well. This place has the ability to recruit this new kind of unit, a sword cav unit, an armoured sword cav unit as well, with really good melee defence. So that's a nice counterbalance to our lancers. The lancers, of course, aren't that good in melee, but with a good charge. The sword cav, not as good at charging, but better at just killing things normally. I was checking the stats here and noted our lancers are even worse than our riflemen in melee, so they're really not that good. But they're doing the job with that charge bonus, that's for sure. In this case, we're just going to recruit a bunch of this trash because we want to use them to hold down public order to get all of our regular units out of here as soon as possible so we can go on to attack something else. There are some survivors who start marauding around Flanders. I have the chance to intercept and take them out here, but I was skeptical of this because theoretically they would just get deleted if we auto-resolved it. But I was like, is that auto-resolve thing going to happen? And it does. We get absolutely trashed in the auto-resolve. We do win the battle, but just barely. So yes, we have to do this one manually. It actually didn't go that well for a manual resolve against one enemy unit because they moved to the side, meaning my guns couldn't shoot at them without shooting each other, so I just turned the guns off. And then they just kind of casually flank attacked my infantry while I was barely doing anything in response. So we did lose like 30 guys to take them down, but it was better than the 500 and something we lost in the auto-resolve. So that's that, no more raiding from them. Now in the next turn I decided to take some troops out of the Paris garrison, because I was thinking there's no immediate threat of attack right here, and we do have a lot of stuff that's being wasted holding this place down. So what I figured I'd do is have a smaller second invasion, and I'm going to send them towards Strasbourg and Stuttgart down at the bottom, while our big army deals with stuff at the top basically. We might be able to take everything at the same time, since the United Provinces don't have that much stuff around here. And in fact this turn I can also move out and attack Cologne, because once again there's a tiny army standing outside the settlement, so we can attack and draw out all of the stuff that's inside, but not the garrison, meaning we'll end up fighting 2 easier battles instead of 1 hard battle if they just collected it together. Public order is good enough to move out right now, leaving just behind the trash we recruited earlier, giving us this fight, which as I said is kind of similar to the one we saw earlier, but a bit easier actually because there's less stuff involved. You know they had to hit me with that cav charge to start off, and this time we play this one pretty much perfect. You can see on the right there, we got like 5 shots at them with just a few of the men in that nearest gun unit, so that's going to slap on them the small arms fire debuff. Then the Lancer charge just finishes them off instantly, so that's what we like to see. That's 1 cav unit down, but they do have quite a few cav units, and of course they are just going to barrel into us. The second one shows how things go if you don't get those couple of shots off first. I'm doing pretty much the same thing, only without 1 unit, because they have to go distract that other cav unit, and without the guns firing. It still works, because we're still piling onto the first cav unit with 3 of our cav units, so that's enough, and the elephants can go over to be scary. But yes, it doesn't instantly defeat them like it does if you hit them with a couple of shots first, even if the shots just go near them to make the debuff be applied. So yes, we go and finish that stuff off, then the enemy come at us with another unit, and this time it routs before running into our front line. That's what we like to see. I think I had the artillery firing at them as well this time, so it was easier to get rid of them. Then some infantry started coming over. Here we charge front on into the enemy. Someone was saying that units you charge front on while they're standing still can resist melee attacks in some way. Not sure if that's the case. Maybe our guys have enough charge bonus to get through that. I think Darthmod changes the way that momentum works with cav, so they tend to go through stuff more than being stopped by it. So maybe that was vanilla someone was talking about. Anyway, basically they have a few units around the place, and I've just sent out the cav to try and kill them one by one. I've also got a unit there that was routed by artillery. We told the artillery to stop firing at them, then the cav chased them off the field for some free kills. It's going to take a while because they have unit after unit gradually coming onto the field from the reinforcement army. So just need to wait for them all to come over and die. We pick up a commander kill right there. Here I am with an actual formation firing at the enemy with my line infantry. I think I was trying to get the enemy to just rout from the artillery attacks and then come in with the cav to save cav lives. Not sure whether this is actually any better because they might have just routed if we ran at them. In the background there, a unit that had routed came back from routing after I ordered some cav to chase them, and I just caught myself about to run into a square they quickly formed. That was some good reactions from the AI actually, that could have damaged my cav unit a fair bit. And now we're going to take those guys down the official way. I have this vague memory that in the game, shooting cannons into squares is the hard counter to square formation. Not sure if there's any actual bonus you get for attacking squares with cannons, but I guess you're just more likely to hit stuff because they're in more of a blob. And we do grab a whole bunch of hits and rout them and send them off the field. Everything else is routed by the elephant and cav charge as usual, and we get a decent result in the end with loads of friendly fire kills. If I'd been paying more attention, we would have done a lot better by the looks of things. Good stuff as always. So that pushes everything away. Now the settlement is left unguarded except by the garrison, but the garrison fortunately decides to surrender. Which is curious because there actually were some survivors here who could have come in as reinforcement, so I would have had to fight them normally, but with the surrender that just gets skipped. Now we've got the Rhineland under our control, and this is pretty good stuff. It's worth more than Flanders, so while Flanders is now vulnerable to counterattack because we pretty much moved everything over here, it's okay to make that trade if the enemy do go for it. I noticed a Prussian army got kicked out of the province by me taking it. They were at war with the United Provinces, so I think they were about to take it. We've probably screwed Prussia over here. They won't be my friend, and the only other diplomatic thing to say is that I have been trying to get peace with a lot of people pretty much all the time, and we are nowhere near getting it with anyone. The capture gave me some line of sight that revealed there is another half stack of United Provinces troops that's in the path of my little invasion force. So now I was thinking, should I send more into the little invasion force? But there's also two half stacks in France right now. There's a United Provinces half stack in the docks just to the north of the city, and a half stack of Savoy troops hanging out down there as well. So I was thinking, if I actually send a whole bunch more stuff out, we could lose France, which would be not a worthy trade for taking Strasbourg. Then again, I'm going to do it kind of anyway. I sent some stuff out to reinforce this army, because when I'm filming campaigns, I tend to go for the riskier plays just because it's nice to see the outcomes of the risky plays. It's better content. So I take about half of the army that was already there out, leaving just a few units that will be like 4-1 outnumbered by the enemy, but figured it would be okay. Well, time to find out, because now it's the enemy turn, and indeed, the United Provinces army does come down and besiege the city. On its own, it's clearly not enough because they just leave it under siege. They don't think they can win. However, the Savoyard army also comes up and lays siege, and now they can team up with the United Provinces force, and that balance bar's looking good for them. We do get some garrison spawn though, so we've got a couple of extra units, and melee units in particular, so that's perfect for a fort defense. Plus the enemy do have a few cav units, which for the start of a fort attack don't count for much. So we do have something to work with here. As if in reaction to what I just said, at the start of this fight the enemy take their cav and charge them at the walls. They clearly want to prove there is a use for cav in a fort assault, but have they thought it through? Well, they reach the wall, and I suppose that's the end of that. Now they're just sort of there, and our men will be able to fire at them with their rifles and the fort cannons. So that's probably not going to help, but maybe if they just had more cav, that would do it. Well, they try that out, more glorious redcoat cav charge in. The first unit decides this probably isn't going to happen, so the second unit takes their place, and nothing continues to happen. We are going to gradually kill them. Our guns do kind of suck, so it takes them a while to kill these guys, even if they're just standing still in front of us. But eventually we can rout them away. Then after a while, we get something more traditional as the infantry come in to make their climb. We've actually now unlocked the ring bayonet, so our guys have an advantage in melee. Plus, I believe our Barkir infantry are better in melee than regular line infantry, in exchange for the fact that they're worse at range. And, even better than that, we can just swap them out here for some sword units who are definitely better in melee than these line infantry. Looks like Savoy doesn't have any kind of bayonet yet, the United Provinces troops do, but they're not in position yet. Savoy are attacking on their own to begin with. They've got some more ropes set up on this corner with a few guys gradually trickling in, and I'm just going to cut off their advance with this extra sword unit. It's especially good when it's a garrison sword unit because their losses become irrelevant. We can just freely exchange them for tons of enemies as they come over the wall. Looks like our guys here are rhythmically oscillating the enemy to death, some sort of vibroses attack. Very powerful, I'm sure. So yeah, basically all the Savoyard troops are going to die. This is just the beginning though, because more and more units are setting up their ropes, and they are going to lock everything on our side down. We don't have that many units, so they can climb in so many places that we run out of maneuverability, and then if they really wanted to, they could try and climb in places where I'm not defending. We're getting close to that point over here with some United Provinces troops setting up ropes towards the back. Luckily, some of the units used the same ropes that had been set up by earlier units that had already routed. So we were able to keep fighting mostly along the same face of the fort, making things easy. Here you can see those United Provinces troops with bayonets. It doesn't actually say in the game what bayonets do, but one imagines it increases your melee stats in some way, so they're probably more equal to us. But again, I think we have high melee defense since our guys are like armored, so hopefully that's good. We just stand here and wait, and with the swords mixed in, and the fact that the enemy will rout long before we do in this situation, we're probably fine. So we let the grind carry on, and there is actually a bit of action outside the fort, because I had one cav unit. I just kept it hidden for most of the fight, but then towards the end I revealed it and slammed into this militia unit that was just hanging around trying to shoot up at us. And since they're only militia, they'll just rout from that charge, and that's a free unit killed. However, this does activate all of the other enemy cav units that are sitting around, so suddenly they start charging in, and it seems like my lancers are in trouble. In response, I just pulled them back inside the fort thinking we'd be fine. Unfortunately, they left the doors open on the way in, and one of the enemy cav units followed them through the open doors and got into the fort. Inconvenient, so now it's a one-on-one, but I think again we have an unstated morale advantage for fighting inside a fort that we control. Meanwhile, the infantry attack is kind of petering out. We have lost a couple of hundred guys fighting up on this wall, but the enemy have lost surely far more, especially when units rout on the top. So that's looking good now. Here was a case where I ordered some swords to go down the wall and attack some enemies who were just shooting up at us. It didn't work, unfortunately. Half of them went down, half of them stayed up, and now they're kind of stuck next to the wall as a result. Luckily, the enemy are obliging in this case. They charge into melee rather than standing there and continuing to shoot at us. So that's great, and a few guys are gradually working out they can use the ropes to go join the rest of their unit over here. Anyway, eventually that unit's going to be defeated as well. Sent some swords to chase after the enemy's remaining cav who were hanging around near the fort and not committing to an attack. At this stage, the enemy's army losses morale debuff will kick in, and they'll just be out of here. This ends the battle with pretty good results. Both of the enemy's attacking armies have been trashed, and interestingly, the battle results in the replay are actually accurate. Even though the enemy had reinforcements, usually that doesn't happen. I think it's because the reinforcements are from different factions. That makes it work. Anyway, so Paris is held, and our gambit seems to have paid off because the troops defending Stuttgart have moved to the north. So now our southern attack group will have a clear route to take those two United Provinces territories, and Paris can definitely hold against what the enemy have left after all that. I'm even replenishing them to make them a bit healthier. I'm mainly worried that Spain will invade since they did threaten to do so earlier, just haven't seen them yet. Anyway, we move on and immediately take Strasbourg with the surrender, so that's good stuff. And I thought, well, we might as well actually just leave it this turn and go and attack the other one as well. Because while the enemy might counterattack and take it back, that's probably not going to happen in this situation. The next one though is more heavily defended. They've got forts and they don't surrender when I arrive. So this is a bit more involved, and I was looking at them and thinking, actually, if we made that forward attack, we probably would fail, because then our morale would just break as we tried to run at the fort. So I decided to leave that place under siege, thinking I might be able to use some units from my main force to help out with that. Once we deal with their little situation, they've got armies near them. But before we look at that, I noticed the United Provinces are making a lot of money doing sea trade out of Amsterdam, and because we have stuff around Amsterdam, we can ruin their day. We can just move in and occupy their ports. That's going to take away like 5,000 a turn from their income, which of course will stop them making a new army at Amsterdam and just buy us a bit more time to finish them off. And speaking of finishing off, I thought with the situation in France I probably shouldn't leave these groups alive, because what's inevitably going to happen is they'll go around and just destroy everything. And in France there are absolutely loads of buildings outside of the main settlement since it's such a big area. So just like 2 enemy units can go and disable a whole bunch of stuff, meaning we probably need to take these guys out. I move most of our remaining garrison to go and attack this army. We win the auto-resolve and push them back. That's that really. As for the other army, we're still at their mercy a little bit, but that's going to make things better for now. The main thing we want to do this turn is to challenge the United Provinces to just a straight up field battle, because these 3 armies we can see here constitute probably more than half of their total armed forces, and we can draw them into a big battle where we even have a slight advantage. So this is a chance for just a decisive general engagement to cut the enemy down to size and clear the path for us to take not just Stuttgart to the south, but to take this army to Amsterdam as well and finish this war off. So that will be our project for the next part. See you there.